Ladies and gentlemen, the very word secrecy is repugnant in a free and open society. And we are, as a people, inherently and historically opposed to secret societies, to secret oaths, and to secret proceedings. For we are opposed around the world by a monolithic and ruthless conspiracy that relies primarily on covert means for expanding its sphere of influence, on infiltration instead of invasion, on subversion instead of elections, on intimidation instead of free choice. It is a system which has conscripted vast human and material resources into the building of a tightly knit, highly efficient machine that combines military, diplomatic, intelligence, economic, scientific, and political operations. Its preparations are concealed, not published. Its mistakes are buried, not headlined. I am asking your help in the tremendous task of informing and alerting the American people, confident that with your help, man will be what he was born to be, free and independent.
And that's that. We can stand up and fight and ride all day through the night. We can make this change right and see our hopes and our dreams come to fruition. It's time to unite as one, calling out to our founding fathers. This is our mission to make you
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Humanity Awaken Radio. With me, as always, my co-host Phil McNamara,
Hi everybody, how you doing?
and we're really excited for this episode today. We're going to be talking about Andrew Basiago's 100 proposals for a new agenda for a new America.
Yeah, I just recently found out who this was, and I am extraordinarily excited because the proposals that he's putting forth are just beyond anything I've ever heard anybody running for president ever talk about, and I'm hoping that this message gets out to a lot of people so they can start to see what's possible.
Yeah, that's right. And Andrew Basiago is somebody that I've been following personally for the last 5 years. He's had some very, very interesting things to say about his involvement in a DARPA program called Project Pegasus. And this has been something that's very, very intriguing for me because it talks about time travel. He talks about, he uses words like chronovisor, and just some very, very interesting things. And if you haven't heard his testimony on this, I highly encourage you to do your own research on his story and, make your own judgment for what you think. But basically, what his story talks about is when he was a child, he was inducted in this program called Project Pegasus, where he was probably middle school age, I'm assuming, maybe even younger. And in that, he basically was in this top secret program, and they got a bunch of children in it and had them do time travel experiments. And in his travels, he actually claims to have met Barack Obama, in that he was with a group of specific people in his time travel group where they were briefed on how they were all to become president one day.
It's incredible.
It really is, and if this story has any merit of truth, it is kind of wild. I personally do believe at least parts of his story, if not all of it, because a lot of it checks out too with just things that I've been researching for the past, ever since I've been into these subjects. So maybe the last 6-7 years, and but so now he actually is running for president, I guess, and this is his website. We have it up right now, and it's just very awesome to see. This is Andrew Basiago right here, and it's awesome to see that he's actually making this happen. And it'd be very interesting to see if he wins or, what he's actually going to accomplish. And here's his homepage right now. Andrew D. Basiago is a prominent figure in the truth movement, more than 10 years, he has shared with the American people the true facts of our great nation's accomplishments in time travel and Mars visitation. He has done so as one who served bravely in 2 secret U.S. defense projects in which time travel on Earth and voyages to Mars were first undertaken. So this is pretty, wild stuff. But we know that this stuff's going on now. We have Corey Goode and everything he's been talking about. We have Captain K. We also have the Mars Records books, which are free online, which came out around the 2000.
I just started reading those, actually.
And they're very eye-opening when
Yeah.
you see that testimony, especially, almost 20 years ahead of what Corey Goode's saying. So we know that this stuff's going on. And I think, Andrew Basiago is a true patriot for coming forward and actually going forward with this. This is very exciting.
What you have to understand is when people come forward with this information, this is life-threatening for them sometimes. The people that want to suppress all of this information are very, very adamant about it. Otherwise, it would already have been released. And so when people come forward and they're whistleblowers and they talk about this stuff, even though it's considered fringe stuff, it's very, they're not going to come forward and risk their life for no reason. That's why when people try to debunk these guys and say that they're lying or whatever, why would you purposely put yourself in harm's way for no good reason? Mm. So, I wouldn't. And, I would assume that if you're coming forward and talking about something that the government has been hiding from the American people and the world for, 50, 60, 70 years, why would you even come forward if somebody's going to easily say, no, not true, and here's how we can prove it? So, you would have to have some pretty strong evidence that this is what your life has been. That's why I happen to love what he's proposing, and we're going to go through a lot of these. There's a lot of them, so we probably won't get through all of them, but we're going to go through some.
There's 100 proposals.
There's 100 proposals. I don't know any other candidate running for president that even has more than 4.
So basically what he wants to do is pretty much end the truth embargo, to use a Stephen Bassett term, on time travel and Mars cover-ups by the U.S. government on behalf of the American people. And basically by doing this, the first thing that happens is you get this free energy technology. And this is something that, has taken my mind a while to come to grips with as far as what free energy really entails. And I've kind of gotten more of a grasp on it the last 3 months. But basically, everyone in around second grade is, has worked with magnets and seeing how magnets can repel each other or attract each other. And basically that's working off, the Earth's own energy. And that's pretty much as simple as this technology gets. But free is free. So we're talking about something free from the Earth, but something that humanity can be using without having to be bought, sold, and paid for through the Babylonian money magic system.
Right, and a lot of, if you don't know for sure, there's a lot of people on this planet that have no electricity. It is unacceptable to me that we live in 2016 and anybody has to go without food, shelter, or electricity. These are basic human rights. You are supposed to be able to at least heat and take care of yourself. And if there's technology out there that's been suppressed, which there obviously have, the government has 600,000 patents that it's holding on to, that it has not released. And when people come up with a free energy or some sort of energy or anything, food, anything, and they go to the patent office and they try to patent it, the government snags it and they won't release it. So as far as from what I understand, there's over 600,000, maybe more, of these patents that have not been released for general consumption. That to me is unacceptable.
This has been going on for a very, very, very long time.
Long time, since over 100 years.
Yeah.
And
Phil, you know a lot more about free energy than I do. I know you were talking to me a little bit before about Tesla and how everything kind of started with him.
Well, the idea is that Tesla created an energy his plan was to release this to the people of the world for free. He wasn't going to make any money off of it. He was just offering it as a gift to humanity. At the very same time that all of this was going on, there was another guy that was trying to figure this all out, and his name was Edison. And he came up with this little thing we call a light bulb, and they figured out a way to make money off of this. And of course, being a capitalistic society, guess what we did? We went with that. J.D. Rockefeller and or one of the Rockefellers, I'm not sure which one it was, and J.P. Morgan were two of the people that were actually backing Tesla. And when they realized that they could make more money off of the Edison patent, they went with that. And so he basically was told toodaloo, and what ended up happening is he died penniless, broke in a hotel in New York, and when he died, all of his paperwork and all of his research was mysteriously, quote unquote, vanished. We all know that it went to the government, and they have been holding on to it for over 100 years.
This is possibly also too where our government got the plans for HARP.
Right, HARP, and a lot of these, these technologies came from Tesla. He is one of the most forgotten and
most innovative minds
that ever existed. In fact, when Einstein was asked, "What does it feel like to be the smartest person in the world?" he said, "I don't know. You need to ask Tesla." So, I mean, this is the kind of, and this is just the tip of the iceberg of the kinds of energies that have been created. People have been creating, free and reusable energy for many, many decades. But the minute you create something and you say, "Hey, look what I got," suddenly the guys show up at your door, and they either beat you and take your stuff, or they kill you outright. So this has been going on for a long, long time, and it has to stop.
And that's part of what Basiago's mission is for this. And it says right here, he's vowed if elected president, he will lead the American people into a bold new era of truth, reform, innovation, as great as they are great. And you can even donate to Basiago's cause on his website. I
mean, this is a much different thing than we've heard from our other candidates. And anybody that knows me knows where I'm leaning if I were to vote in this election. But this is a guy who I think is going to, really revolutionize the entire world. Like, really, really. I mean, his ideas, we're going to go through some of these, and when you hear what he's talking about, you're going to have to suspend a little bit of your disbelief for some of it. But really, I mean, no presidential candidate has ever spoken about these things.
This is a legitimate person running for
president.
Yes,
it's not a joke.
Something that needs to be taken very seriously, that these topics are, we understand the seriousness of them. Some of our audience understand the seriousness of these topics. And if you don't, this is a good time to start digging into them and see why a serious presidential possibility would even be talking about these things. I also want to make the note too that for some of the listeners who aren't aware, we are doing a video recording of this right now. For those of you listening, if you want to see the video of this and us covering all the proposals on Andrew's website, you can view the video on YouTube.
Yep.
And the site that we're on for Basiago's site is andy2016.com. And here you can see all the proposals and do your own research and everything that he's talking about here.
We truly invite you to do your own research. Don't take our word for it as the law, but just look into these things and see if they ring for you. So
let's get right into it.
Let's do it.
Okay, so the first proposal is advanced technologies, and it says here, truth. The president should reveal life-advantaging technologies kept secretly by the U.S. government.
Disclosing secret advanced technologies. For 70 years, the U.S. government has been concealing advanced technologies because they might be socially, economically, or technically disruptive in nature. These technologies include the teleportation technology developed by DARPA's Project Pegasus. They may also include cancer cures. The government should begin a program to declassify and deploy this knowledge. The standard of technical disclosure should be what provides the people with the best available technology. This will enable the United States to claim its mantle as the world's catalyst of applied science.
This is really interesting, especially the where he says they may also include cancer cures, because I mean it's very obvious that there's this population control agenda in place.
Yes,
and it's very obvious. I mean that we have cancer cures. I mean you have some of these people living in politics, like Kissinger and like, Rockefeller and all these people. They're just
even Jimmy Carter
getting
just
so
had cancer
old now, but they're not sick with anything.
Right. And if they are sick with it, they immediately go to whatever their special doctor is, and boom, they're done, and they're still living. President Bush is 99 years old.
Wow.
I mean, come on. He's in a wheelchair and he looks like a bag of bones, but I mean, he's still alive. And
there is also too there is a procedure being that a lot of people will say, like, why would the elite spray chemtrails on everyone with all the heavy metals and everything if they're just going to get it too? Well, they are getting it, but if you have enough money, there is a way to cleanse your blood of heavy metals, where it's a very extremely intense process where you can actually take all the blood out of your body and put new blood into your body that's clean without all the heavy metals.
And here's the thing too, just to sort of go on this. If we're in a situation where people are getting cancer at an exponential rate. I know that every single person listening to this podcast knows at least one person, possibly a family member or themselves, that is suffering from some form of cancer. It killed my mother. It killed a bunch of people that I've known. And when I was a little boy, you never heard about this.
If you want a cancer cure, this is probably the only candidate that will probably get it out to you.
Yeah.
Maybe Sanders, but he's saying it right here.
He's saying
if it's
he's going to
available,
do it.
it will come out.
It will come out.
And we have it. I mean,
we have it.
We totally have it.
It's the industry is in the industry of keeping you sick.
Mm-hmm.
And so, because they make a lot of money if you're still sick. If they cure you, you go away, they never hear from you again. Well, now they have to go get new customers. It's much easier to keep the customer they have and keep them coming back than it is to get new ones.
Correct.
So.
All right, the second proposal is quantum transparency. The president should declassify and reveal the technologies in America's time travel arsenal. Disclosing America's time travel technologies. DARPA's Project Pegasus developed 8 modalities of time travel by 1970. Only to keep this great technical feat of our nation, the advent of time travel, secret from the American people. Teleportation was kept as a weapon that would allow battlefronts to be stormed without casualties. Chronovision was kept secret as an intelligence-gathering device that would allow for surveillance of past and future events. Only by disclosing its time travel technologies can America unleash the potential that these technologies have to advantage humanity in the 21st century. By the way, if everyone who's watching sees me, pointing my mouth this way, this is where the mic is. So I'm trying to make sure, I'm still on the camera, but my mouth is being picked up, my voice is being picked up by the microphone. But this is very interesting what he's saying here. He just, used the word chronovision as a way to surveillance the past and future events. There's been multiple whistleblowers who have talked about, people using something like chronovision or Project Looking Glass to go back and witness the Christ resurrection event. I mean, just imagine being able to go back and do something like that, or going back and see,
watch
the
your parents
assassination
being born.
The assassination of Lincoln. These that was another event where a whistleblower said that they did go back and witness that, and it's just really wild to kind of wrap your head around that. And that's some of the missions that these children would do in Project Pegasus.
Yep, I think it's stunning that a presidential candidate would come out and talk about this. And even though it's kind of hard to accept, understand that they've made movies about this. If they make a movie about something, it's a fair bet that somebody along the line has already thought this up. This is not some random thing. Why would you not do this if you had this technology?
Correct. It's a form of partial disclosure.
Correct. Please, when you go to the movies, pay attention to what they're showing you, because they're showing you partial disclosure. Hollywood and the elite and they work hand in hand, and they throw little bones out at you. And if you're aware of them, you're catching them. And television shows too. If you're watching these things with that in mind, it changes the way you view a show. I mean, yes, it's entertainment, but it's also educational too.
This was something that I noticed too. There's 3 movies out right now. There's Gods of Egypt, there's Batman vs Superman, and then there's the new Captain America movie with Iron Man. And all these 3 movies are basically they're pinning like good guys against good guys.
Right.
And this is something that I thought very, very interesting. Like, we've never had this many movies coming out at one time, or like the good guys are fighting the good guys. It's always been good guys fighting the bad guy.
Right.
And with Gods of Egypt, it's God versus God. With Batman versus Superman, it is kind of interesting because in that sense, it's man versus ET.
Right.
But they're both good on good sides. They just have different views. And then with Captain America, I don't know the full plot of that, but I mean, we've both grown to love, the Captain America character and the Iron Man character. I mean,
Right.
It's Robert Downey Jr., like,
Yeah, you can't go wrong.
you want to hang out with him. I want to hang out with Robert Downey Jr.
Yeah.
So we have that going on, and it plays a certain effect on the co-creative consciousness that can come through the programming with these movies. And right now, I see that the elite need us to co-create this reality where good is fighting good, where we're fighting each other right now to create more division. Because the elite's kind of in this kind of standstill. If there is this like kind of this barrier around the solar system right now, with the whole blue avian situation. If you don't know what I'm talking about, please listen to previous episodes. We spent a lot of time talking about this, or watch Cosmic Disclosure with David Wilcock and Corey Goode. If that is happening, the elite's only card to play is to pin us off against each other so they can do whatever they need to do to buy them more time.
And they've already done a very good job of that, and we've all
Yes.
fallen for it,
Yes.
myself included.
Yes.
And
Where we are bickering with each other within the awakened community.
Right.
Online, it's crazy.
It's ridiculous.
It's absolutely ridiculous.
And I'm more than on one occasion actually gotten into not an argument, but I've just looked at the thread of a group of so-called awakened people and said, "Why are you guys fighting with each other?" It's like you
We're on the
gotta
same team
stop. We're all on the same team. We're all fighting for the same cause. We need to get together, pull it together, and press on, or they're going to decimate us. Mm-hmm. Okay, and this is ridiculous now. So we need to, as the awakened community, we must pull together. We must, help other people to see what's going on. Because if we're fighting with each other, why would somebody want to come to our community? Mm-hmm. We need to actually walk the walk and talk the talk that we're doing here.
Well said.
Okay.
Before we move on from this one, I thought that this was very interesting. The line where he says, teleportation was kept secret as a weapon that would allow battlefronts to be stormed without casualties. That's extremely interesting because I don't think I've heard almost every interview that Basiago's done, I think. And I've never heard him talk about that.
I haven't either.
That's a very interesting concept in the sense of for warfare. Just, wrap your head around that.
Yeah.
But I wanted to, talk about that you can't just like gloss over that. Okay, so presidential honesty. You want to take this one?
Yeah, this one's amazing. Okay. The president should ask living presidents to admit that they were given foreknowledge of their destinies. Admitting how time travel affected the presidency. The time-space age began in 1970 when DARPA's Project Pegasus modified the Tesla teleporter. Again, we're going back to Tesla. So as to send the teleportee to a destination in the past or future. At the time, the bias in government
Real quick, he's just saying that actually worked, and they're basing the technology after that.
Right.
Just to make
Tesla's
that clear.
stuff worked. So at the time, the bias in government was against playing God and quantum engineering the future based on prior knowledge of it. However, one exception to this doctrine was made when it was decided future presidents should be told of their presidencies. The president should ask the presidents Clinton, Bush, so both Bushes, and Obama to tell the truth to the American people and admit that they were given foreknowledge of their presidencies. This is stunning information. If this is true, and I believe that it is, that means that all of the presidents that have been sitting from President Bush, Daddy Bush, forward have had foreknowledge of their presidencies, that they knew based on Tesla's teleporter that they actually were going to become president. That's a stunning revelation. That could dictate the entire course of your life if you knew that was going to happen.
This is also interesting too because this, from what we understand about how Project Looking Glass and the Chronovisor work, or this is at least how I understand Project Looking Glass works. Dan Burish came forward and talked about this. He was an employee at Area 51 or S4 for a period of time. I believe it was S4.
S4.
And he talked about how Project Looking Glass, you would be able to look into it, and it was a technology where you can see the possibilities, the probabilities of future timelines.
Right.
And what was also very interesting about Project Looking Glass is, depending on the person's religious background or the person's background, how they view the world, it would shift what people saw in Project Looking Glass's probabilities of the future.
Right.
But what Andy is saying here is that maybe perhaps with the chronovisor, there's some events in the future that are so prominent that they just know that these people are going to become president. Or are the probabilities so strong that you can socially engineer those outcomes,
right,
or somehow engineer the future? I mean, the elites like to refer to themselves as the social engineers. If you have the ability to control and tap into people's subconscious mind on a level throughout time, and you have that system down to a level where you can literally engineer the future outcome that you have a plan to set place for. Not to mention you have a stronger probability of actually seeing the future through one of these devices. It would be very probable, once again to use that word probable, that this could actually happen.
Right.
I don't know how he's going to admit the Bushes to
I really doubt that he
admit this,
will.
though.
So
you know, even if it was a law.
Probably have to drag them into court.
Yeah, even if it was a law.
And he is
I
a
don't see
lawyer,
it
actually,
happening.
too, so that makes things
That's
a little
true.
bit
He's
easier.
a lawyer.
Yeah, he's a lawyer.
Yeah. So he understands what he's doing on a legal level as well.
Right.
So for him to even say this, he must understand that there must be somewhere legally where they would have to admit that, I guess.
Right.
Truthful government. The president should establish a permanent truth process within the United States government.
Hallelujah.
Establishing a truth process in government. The lesson of Watergate, the Iran-Contra scandal, and the cover-up of cancer deaths by the tobacco company is that the corrective functions of the U.S. government have tend to rely on brave acts of journalists, members of Congress, and whistleblowers. Beyond that, the government possesses no institutionalized truth process. It should, as a Justice Brandeis stated, is that how you say that?
I think it's Brandeis.
Brandeis. Sunlight is said to be the best of disinfectants. The president should establish a Senate Truth Commission to allow former executive branch intelligence and military personnel to reveal secret information with immunity from prosecution. And this is almost impossible right now because I believe it was Obama who passed some kind of, whistleblower act. I think there's like two. There's like a whistleblower protection act, but then there's also this like whistleblower demonization act too. That it's like,
remember, we live in a dualistic society, so it has to good and bad. But think about this: if all of the people that were already involved in these projects were allowed to come forward and talk about what they knew and when they knew it, and not go to prison behind it, then imagine all the information that would be able to come out almost instantly. CNN would have to do round-the-clock coverage 24 hours a day for years to get all this information out. You guys have no idea how much stuff has been stomped on and suppressed and pushed back because there's this innate fear that if we, the general people, sheep people, find out about all of this, that we're going to like go nuts and like run in the streets and throw off our clothes. And, there's just this pervasive fear from the elites that what it really comes down to is if they find out that this information is true, they're going to lose their power. That's what it comes down to. Mm-hmm. Where's the money going? Where's the power going? Where's all this going? A man like Andy is telling us that as president of the United States, he will come forward and say, you are now immune from prosecution. Come forward and talk about what you want to talk about. Imagine what people would be able to say. That's amazing. Mm. Okay. This next one is called intelligence reform. And like I said, we're not going to go through all 100 of these. I wish we could because there's some really good things. The president should transform the CIA by transitioning it to an open source intelligence. Reforming the CIA via open source intelligence. The creation of the Central Intelligence Agency in 1947 distorted our nation's culture, and thwarted its destiny. I'm going to say that again. The creation of the Central Intelligence Agency in CIA in 1947 distorted our nation's culture and thwarted its destiny. Over time, it led to the emergence of a permanent secret government operating outside the oversight of Congress and involved fomenting wars and revolutions abroad with depriving citizens of their civil liberties at home. While the world is too complex and dangerous for us not to have a CIA, it can be reformed successfully by transitioning it into an open source intelligence in which the CIA would become the nation's super university. Boom. That's a stunning concept. That he's taking existing agencies and reformatting them so that they are now a teaching tool instead of a tool where people are being harmed as a result.
The nation's super university. It's really interesting.
It's a really cool concept.
It really is.
I mean, imagine what you could learn. Imagine what could happen if you have a CIA that is where you can just go onto their website and see all the information that they have downloaded and figured out. Where it's not they're instigating coups and they're instigating, they're bringing up ISIS and bringing up all these things, which is what they've been doing. Al Qaeda, Al CIA, that's jinx. But honestly, that's what it is, and most people are unwilling to look at this because and again, all of this information is subject to whether or not you want to look at it and follow these. I hate the term rabbit holes, but that's what they really are, to their logical rabbit. And if you get to the bottom of it and you're like, oh my God, I mean, this is all that either of us did. We started following a chain of events, a chain of information, and just led it to where we went, oh my God, the nugget of this is that this Central Intelligence Agency has now become a tool of the elites to siphon off money, to create wars, to create dissent among people. And as long as we're continuing to do this, we're never going to have a cohesive world. We have to stop this behavior. And that goes, and not all of these elites are bad. Not all of them are. A lot of them are sort of turning and saying, well, you know what? This is my opportunity to change this. And if more of them would do that, we might have this will move a lot faster. Let's put it that way.
I also want to bring up, too, that 1947, we also had Roswell.
Right.
1947, the CIA was formed. And also is when Truman signed the National Security Act.
Right.
Those events will never leave my subconscious as far as that was a huge year.
Yeah.
For a lot of change in our government, and I don't see that as coincidence at all.
No,
that all happened after Roswell.
No.
I just don't. And so there's some ET connection with the CIA starting.
Right.
It was seriously in response. The CIA being formed and the National Security Act was in response to Roswell. These things became...
This thing landed on Earth, and they went over and they looked at it and
literally
they said, oh my God, there's people from other planets. What are we going to do?
A couple months later, they create all these...
Right.
And there's no coincidence there.
Nope.
It was in response to the situation.
Right. So, let's see.
Pardoning Snowden.
Oh, I love this one.
I mean, I think this just says it right off the bat. The president should pardon Edward Snowden and give him the Presidential Medal of Freedom.
Yep. Do you want to read that one, or do you want me to read it?
I'll read it.
Okay.
Honoring Edward Snowden as a national hero. Sometimes a citizen must violate the law to uphold lawfulness. Ooh, I love that. I love that.
Chills down my spine right now.
Such is the case of Edward Snowden, the CIA programmer who violated his secrecy oath by revealing to the American people that the U.S. government was involved in pervasive surveillance of the private electronic communications of the American people. His response was to blow the whistle on this illegal regime of domestic spying and then depart on a global odyssey that sent him into exile in Russia. Edward Snowden is an American hero. The president should pardon Snowden and give him the Presidential Medal of Freedom. And I 100% agree with that.
And I do too. I mean, he did not perpetrate a crime against the American people. He perpetrated if you want to call it a crime, he perpetrated a crime against the very government that he was working for. And whereas by their standards, he committed quote unquote treason, what he actually did is he exposed a very, very big problem that's been going on in this country for a long time. And as a result of it, legislation and things have had to be passed, and it's made people have to work a little harder, and it's made people very, those of us that work in the conspiracy or the alternative research community all know that there's a very good chance that we're being watched and monitored. We're not being paranoid. We're just letting you know we know that that's what's part of the deal.
But everyone is.
Everybody is. And that's the thing. You work at Taco Bell, or it's like whenever you put your GPS tracker into your phone, somebody's looking at that information, whether or not, and they're really not looking to find out whether you went to Taco Bell or whether you went to the Walmart or whether you went to the mountains. What they want to know is they want to see a pattern, and they want to see certain buzzwords. And if you put certain buzzwords into the computer, or you're typing or you're texting them, it red flags on some computer somewhere in some giant office building, which has got thousands of people in it. And that's what they're paid to do, is to look for these buzzwords. And if they see enough of them, they're going to look a little bit closer at what you're talking about. Ostensibly, it was created to track terrorism, which is just a hokey pile of bullshit as far as I'm concerned. And so, in this, Edward Snowden came, the boogeyman that isn't coming. And in this case, Edward Snowden not only needs to be, there should be Edward Snowden University and Edward Snowden Elementary School.
How to be a whistleblower.
How to be a whistleblower by Edward Snowden. This is how everybody should be out there.
He should be running the CIA program that he talked about up here for the open source intelligence. He should be the head guy.
I mean, think about this. For South Africa, it was Nelson Mandela. He was a criminal. When he came out of being a criminal 27 years later, they made him the president of the country because he was so deeply wronged. And in this case, Mr. Snowden should actually, like Brian said, be given the head of the CIA to run in this fashion. I think that would be a brilliant way for reparations for what the man has been through.
I also want to bring something up, too, as far as my mind's been kind of thinking after hearing this. Somebody might say, okay, let's say there's a chronovisor. Okay. Let's say there's a Project Looking Glass.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't these elites use Project Looking Glass or the chronovisor to see that Edward Snowden was going to release this information and stop him?
Oh, good question.
And why wouldn't they know? Why would they prep Andrew Basiago to become president if he was just going to tell them all their secrets?
Right.
Something that Project Looking Glass doesn't necessarily do from what I understand. Okay, let's lay the groundwork again.
Okay.
It shows probabilities.
Right.
We don't know the extent of what those probable timelines actually show.
Right.
Or if they're a positive or negative timeline towards the person viewing it.
Right. And I think it's based on their own experience. So, if you're a devout Catholic and you're looking into the past and you're going to be looking for certain specific events, the device knows that and will skew your timeline toward that event. Mm-hmm. The future is not set. They said that in Terminator. It's not. So
no
it's
faith
just
but what you make it.
No faith but what you make it. So if you're looking into the future, you're going to take the emotions of what you believe the future is going to look like into that experience. So it's going to develop timelines that sort of expound on that. And since timelines are, everybody's timeline is different. So if you're a negative person, if you're, Henry Kissinger looking into the future, you're going to see a much different future than, let's say, let's just say Jimmy Carter or
Edward Mandela
or anybody that, if you're a positive human being, you're going to see a much more positive future. Bernie Sanders is going to look into the future and go, wow, our revolution worked and we're going to have this huge, beautiful new government. Henry Kissinger looks into it and goes, there's a mushroom cloud.
Yeah.
So it just really all depends on where you're at. And because it's, I mean, these little things that we're talking about, like for instance, they even said it in Star Wars, always emotion the future is. Yoda said that.
What did he say?
Always emotion the future is.
Huh.
So
the second one?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, when he was talking to Luke. And so, that's a little piece of disclosure there. So many of these we have to do. Okay.
Well, I just want to throw that out there just to let you know, those are probabilities, that either they've seen this or they haven't seen this, or, I don't understand. I don't even think they understand the full extent of how this works, because, how can you actually be telling the future if every person who views it has a different outcome?
Right.
I guess there's strong probabilities of what can happen if, let's say, 10 people get in a room and they all see that Basiago is going to become president or Obama is going to become president. There's a high probability that that's going to happen.
It's very true.
Also, you want to keep in mind before we move on, the people in control of these technologies do not want to use it for good.
No.
That's why it's not out and available to the human race.
Right.
So they're going to have a drastically different version of the probable future, just like Phil was saying.
Yeah.
If, him or I looked at it.
And also remember that they also don't want people to come in and go through these devices and trample all over the past.
Yeah.
And trample. I mean, it's not a tourist attraction.
Yeah, correct.
I mean, it's you're not going to have 500 people go back in time and view the crucifixion. It's going to freak the people that are there out. It's I'm sure there's some dampers and there's some ways to make this so that you can view it without participating in it.
All right, let's move on to the next one. So this is extraterrestrial disclosure. The president should end the ET cover-up in a live televised address to the American people, revealing the ET presence on Earth. The right to know the true natural history of the cosmos that we inhabit is the common heritage of mankind. However, the concealment by the U.S. government of the extraterrestrial situation has come to symbolize how the U.S. government conceals the truth from the American people. The president should end the ET cover-up in a live televised address to the American people that would include the number and types of ET species visiting Earth, the hidden history of the U.S. government interaction with the ET visitors, and the nature and the extent of the ET human liaison projects that resulted from contact. Could you imagine how incredible that would be if that were to be live televised by the president?
And it would be about the only way that we could actually get people to actually believe this is happening.
Yeah. I've said it a million times, no one's going to believe this, even if Wolf Blitzer is saying it, on CNN, and he's saying it. Some people are still not going to click to them. They need the president to say it to make it official, because that's how we look at reality in this country. It would be if it comes out of the president's mouth, which pretty much everything's probably a lie that comes out of his mouth.
Yeah.
But people aren't going to get it until he actually says it.
And it would even be better, just in case anybody's listening that happens to be a president, it would be better if you had a couple of the representatives of the other races present with you, so they could see that this isn't some crazy stunt that,
Let's say Putin came out and did this before Obama did.
Hi, Putin.
If Putin did this, I seriously feel like we're living in such a crazy media that the media would say, look at Putin and his conspiracy theories, and he's saying that ETs are real and blah, blah, blah. Our media would seriously do that.
They would.
And try to make him look like a crazy person.
They would.
And in reality, Putin's probably doing more to get this stuff out there than any other person in high power.
There's a few things he needs to change in his human rights things, but other than that, he's doing some amazing work. And he's really leading the world right now. And if we go to the next slide, okay, so this is something that's important too, and I'm just going to throw this out there too. This is disclosing the atomic bomb ET connection. The reason why, once we detonated the first atomic, the heavy water experiments and the first atomic bombs, it's like the entire cosmos went, oh God, the kids have gotten the matches. And
we had this huge surge in UFO sightings during that time, and it's just only gotten more increasive since.
And I'll read this just because this part of it, this is why. The explosion of atomic bombs represents a kind of cosmic folly. When an atomic bomb is exploded, the physical substrates of the cosmos are destroyed, creating a tear in the fabric of time-space. From the perspective of ET civilizations, nothing could be worse for a planetary civilization to undertake, especially one that doesn't understand what it's doing. The president should disclose the fact that this was the event of atomic explosions that caused the increase in visits to Earth by ET after World War II. And this has been known since 1947. Again, 2 years after we dropped the bomb on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, suddenly we have a crash craft. We have all these ETs that are coming into Earth, whether they're from here or below us, whether they're part of the subterranean species that apparently exist as well. Whoever it is that's coming here is like now a little bit they're real nervous because it's like giving a 5-year-old a gun.
We've even had a bunch of reports of these craft shutting down entire nuclear installations.
Yeah.
And
you can
from
see
the
those
people
on
who
video.
are like on the computers, like watching this like unidentified object on radar, and everyone's kind of sitting there all tense. What are they going to do? Are they going to launch it? What are they going to do? And then they just shut it down. So they have the ability to just do that.
Yeah. I mean, just think about a civilization that's even 100 years more advanced than we are right now. Just think about that.
With that, they're not trying to kill us, obviously.
Right. They're trying to stop us from doing something stupid.
All these movies about them invading us, it's obviously not happening that way. That's the elite trying to keep us in fear of this.
The number one movie of its time that ever came out that was, look at the two movies that were the biggest blockbusters. Close Encounters of the Third Kind was not about aliens invading us. They were bringing people back that they had taken. And E.T., the extraterrestrial, was about this little goofy alien that comes to Earth and likes Skittles or whatever they were. And I cried like a little baby when I watched this movie. I was probably 17. And these are the two of the biggest movies that ever came out. They were both by Steven Spielberg, ironically. And but these big movies that come out about these horrible aliens that are here to kill us, that's great for popcorn sales, but it's not really the reality. There are very few races that are here that are that are dark in nature. I'm just saying that. I don't know for sure, but that's...
Well, it seems like the ones interacting with Earth on a regular basis are malevolent and in the way that they're interacting with us and abductions and things like that. However, that's a very small percentage of the vast, good beings in the cosmos.
That's true, but malevolency can also be... It's also a point of view.
Yeah, we've talked about this a lot.
Yeah, we talked about this, and so
malevolent towards humans, I guess you could say.
Their interaction with us is detrimental to our health. However,
to them it might be beneficial to their race.
Right, and we might be saving their people. Mm-hmm. So they should have asked us first, but that's just my personal opinion on that.
Yeah.
So let's see, what else we got here? So many of these. Do we want to go with this one? Or? Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah. All right. So, extraterrestrial contact. The president should craft an ET policy that anticipates a diversity of ET visitors on Earth. Developing an ET contact policy. According to a space physics textbook used in the U.S. Air Force Academy in the 70s, 57 extraterrestrial species are visiting our planet. 57. 4 ET species, the small greys, the tall greys, the reptilians, and the Nordics, are known to be visiting our planet frequently. We need to not only achieve transparency about the ET situation, but also develop an ET contact policy that is subtle, nuanced, and recognizes that the ET species that can reach us across interstellar space, or interdimensional space, may include those that are benevolent, which means good, neutral, which is either good or bad, and hostile to our interests as Earthlings. Okay, just to put this into perspective, we can't this election in America has pitted everybody against each other. Can you imagine the chaos that will ensue if people are not together when we announce, or when it is announced, that there are extraterrestrial beings that have been visiting our planet for hundreds, maybe thousands, possibly millions of years? If we can't get along with each other, how in the world are we going to get along with beings that are not even from here? We are human beings. We are not just Muslims and Christians and Jews and this and that. We are human beings. And so we need to be united as a race of people in order to get these other beings on board with us being part of the team. We want to be part of the team, but we can't be part of the team if we're tearing each other apart.
That's correct. And this is a very, very powerful thing to have, to develop an ET contact policy. But, I mean, let's just get right to it. I mean, he's saying here that there's 57 extraterrestrial species visiting our planet. He mentions 4 ET species. I would say those are the 4 main, but I would probably say that there's 5 because the insectoids were left out.
Right.
We hear a lot of reports of people seeing insectoids in abduction experiences. So, but it's still incredible that a presidential candidate, possible candidate, is getting this open about this stuff.
Right.
But this is stuff that needs to be talked about. I mean, this is
Right.
actual truth. Like, the only reason we never heard anything like this from other presidential candidates before is because
They're
obviously not.
establishment.
They're not telling the truth.
Right. And they're being told not to tell the truth because they're
The people financing them do
Right.
not want this to come out
Right.
because then they don't make any more money
Right.
and then they lose control and they lose power.
follow the money. Always follow the money. When you follow the money, you find out what happened. Which I think leads us into I think we're going to be going into some other stuff that has nothing to do with aliens, but there's a lot of stuff that he talks about that isn't alien related too, which is also really, really important to talk about too. But I wholeheartedly agree with this. We have to do this.
Wow, there's just so much more.
Right. And this is where I wanted to go. Okay. I'm going to talk about this real quick because this is one of my passions, is the events that surrounded 9/11 and 9/11 itself. Missing trillions. The president should search for the $2.3 trillion that went missing the day before 9/11. On September 10, 2001, the day before 9/11, then Secretary of Defense Donald Rumsfeld held a press conference, I remember watching this, and announced that the $2.3 trillion, think about how much money that is missing from the Pentagon budget. Can you imagine if that much money was missing from your household budget? It's gone. The missile that struck the Pentagon the next day, it was not a plane, it was a missile, that struck the Naval Intelligence Unit, was investigating what happened to this money.
I did not know that, actually.
I did. And I'm telling you right now, I find that highly ironic that was Presidents Bush and Obama failed subsequently to inform the American people what happened to this money. This was real money. Where did $2.3 trillion go? The new American president, Mr. Basiago, should launch a search for this money that belongs to the American people. I have a pretty good guess where it went. It went into one of these dark projects. It went into the secret space program. It went bye-bye. This money is not, this is a stunning revelation.
Possibly defense for the spheres
Right.
that came in around this time.
This is around the time that the spheres came in. So,
Wow. I never really put that together,
Yeah.
but that could finance some kind of like planetary defense system.
hell yeah, it could.
For,
Yeah.
So what we're talking about is the sphere beings that Corey Goode said that came into the solar system around early 2000s, late 1990s.
Right.
And this could be
And
some way of creating more of a new world order society quicker,
Right.
as well as getting all this money.
And think about it. If 9/11 happened the day after this, it's a fair bet that they already knew that this was in place and this money went missing, and they knew that as soon as those planes hit those towers, all talk about this money would go away, and it's exactly what happened. And now when you talk about it, it's like, oh, that didn't happen. You can go back and look on CNN's website, or you can go back and look on YouTube and see Donald Rumsfeld talking about this. This is not a made-up story. This actually happened. I remember watching it. I was stunned because there was so much money missing. I'm like, where would that much money go?
Is it really actually still on?
I believe that it is. I
YouTube?
think I saw a clip of it not too long ago. I'm going to look it up again, but they may have pulled it. But it was on there before, and he's like, well, I'd like to know where this money went, and and the next day, boom, we're at war. Coincidence? I doubt it. The next...
Okay, so government transparency. The president should ask Congress to make the Freedom of Information Act less restrictive. I think this is going to be really great because we need this. Like all the for those of you who don't know what the Freedom of Information Act is, It's an act where you can get previously top secret documents or classified documents that are not deemed top secret anymore or classified anymore, and it can be available by, simply putting a request in, and you can get some of these documents. And that's how we found out about a lot of very interesting things in the past.
Very.
So, anyone can do this. Any citizen can do this.
Right.
And a lot of researchers will make their documents public on their website, and but a lot of it is blacked out. They're redacted, is what it's called.
Right.
Of sensitive materials. And,
Usually names.
But sometimes entire pages will be completely
Maybe
redacted.
like 5 words in the...
Yeah, or and there'll be 5 words that you can only read. So it's very loose in what they can, they have to put it out by law if it's requested, but they can literally just black out anything they want.
Right.
So it says here, the Freedom of Information Act, FOIA, has fostered transparency in government. The national security exemption of FOIA, however, has been exploited by the U.S. government to maintain state secrecy about the most significant information. The president should sponsor a new FOIA in which ongoing concealment of information held secretly by the federal government would be permissible only where public revelation of the information would 1. Violate individual or group privacy, or 2. Pose a clear and present danger of immediate irreparable harm. So that's very simple, and it's said in a very concise legal way of how to make this more... it protects the people if they're in it, if names are in it, like you were saying, Phil, present danger or irreparable harm. But it allows for us to get more information from these documents. And it's also good to, for more accountability.
Yeah.
Okay, global abolition. You want to take this one?
Okay, yeah. The president should lead an international campaign to free the world's 27 million slaves. Leading a global abolition movement. There are 27 million slaves in the world today. This number of slaves exceeds the number of slaves that ever existed in America before the Emancipation Proclamation of 1863. The United States fought a violent civil war to end slavery, or at least one kind of slavery. We should fight to defend human freedom and end slavery today. The president should lead a new abolition movement to free the world's millions of slaves. This should be done even if $27 billion must be contributed by the world's wealthy nations to buy the employment contracts under which workers have been enslaved.
That's extremely powerful.
Wow. I mean, who in our current political system would even have that kind of a forward thought to try to free the millions of people in this world who are living under the lash of slavery? And if you didn't know this existed, now you do.
These aren't just proposals from what I'm kind of gathering, because I'm reading all these for the very first time. But these are solutions. Every single one of these proposals has solutions.
It's a solution.
And it's very powerful to see this. It's very powerful.
We live in our government is a problem reaction solution situation, but they're creating their own problem, they're creating their own reaction, and they're creating a semi solution which actually leads back to the problem. So this is a way to actually get into the actual situation, look at it and say, okay, if there's 27 million people that are living under the lash of slavery on the planet, that's unacceptable. And how are we going to stop that? We're going to actually buy their contracts and release them from that slavery, so they're free. Brilliant.
Banking reform. The president should require the banks that were saved by the people to do the right thing, ending the predatory practices of banks. During the crisis of 2008, the American people bailed out and saved America's biggest banks. The too big to fail financial institutions received $700 billion from the U.S. taxpayer and $16 trillion in virtually zero interest loans from the Federal Reserve. The bailout was a success. We avoided the bank closures of the Great Depression. 3 of the 4 largest banks are 80% bigger today than before we bailed them out. To protect everyday Americans, the banks must now be prohibited from charging exorbitant fees for overdrafts and other predatory practices. So I think this is something that everybody wants. Without even needing permission, it's just like
Yeah, that's kind of a gimme. But more importantly, just to give you an idea of what happened, Bank of America charged its people, its customers, $30 billion in overdraft fees. Now remember that an overdraft fee is when you don't have enough money in the bank to cover your, you've all had one. I've had several where you have $7 in your bank and your check comes in 2 days and something hits your account and it goes out and now you're negative, and rather than leave it there, they charge you $35 for the privilege of having less than enough money in your account. So now you owe more money, and to the tune of $30 billion just from Bank of America alone.
Here's another little scheme that I found that is done a lot is like on the mobile banking, it's not as up to date and accurate as like on the app as it would be online.
Right.
Like everything is kind of like a day or two like behind in the processing.
That's happening to me right now.
Yeah,
actually.
what you see in your available balance isn't necessarily what your available balance is.
Right.
And I don't understand why it could be that drastically different, but because of that, they get a bunch of overdraft fees and stuff for that because you think you have enough to clear it, but then sometimes the processing goes through at different times, and everyone knows what I'm talking about. And it just blows my mind how that still hasn't been fixed, especially with today's technology and apps and stuff like that.
And it may be that may be part of the problem is that they're not fixing it on purpose, so that they know that they're. I mean, think about it. And they give you one freebie a year.
Yeah, they have that plausible deniability, and I've actually gotten out of that a few times. If you just actually call, and get on the phone and wait for 15, 20, 30 minutes, whatever it is, talk to the person, just say what went on. They usually, they'll give you that gimme.
Yeah.
But sometimes they don't, and when they don't, sometimes it could
also never talk to the first person you call. Always ask for the supervisor. Just a little hint there.
A little tip there.
Yeah, very important.
Banning chemtrails. That's you,
okay.
Good sir.
All right. The president should issue an executive order banning all chemtrail spraying by U.S. agencies. The chemtrail program was the brainchild of Dr. Edward Teller.
I did not know that until reading this right now.
Yeah.
I'd never even heard that.
Teller advised that if we sprayed aluminum and barium oxides in the upper atmosphere, this would enhance the albedo effect, the reflectance of solar radiation back into space from clouds, snow, and sand. This, he hoped, would stem global warming, which, by stopping the Gulf Stream, may threaten us with a new ice age. The chemtrails, however, have led to widespread respiratory distress. The president should end chemtrail spraying by U.S. agencies by executive order and pursue technical innovation to end global warming.
So this needs to happen no matter what. I mean, we also are seeing that links to heavy metals are also increasing Alzheimer's.
Right.
I mean, my grandmother has Alzheimer's right now. I'm pretty sure it's just like you said with cancer. Like most people know someone who has Alzheimer's. And this is happening, and it's happening more now in the last 10, 20 years because chemtrail spraying really started to take effect around 92, I believe it was.
Yeah.
And now it's just over the top all the time. So when this stuff's in our body, it has extreme toxic effects on us. Right. And to be tested for heavy metal toxins in your body, it costs way too much than the normal person can even try to test for. So that's why it's not a bigger conversation, is because we can't afford the test for it. And if you go to your regular checkup, they're not testing for heavy metals if you're getting your blood tested.
Right.
If
you say that to the doctor, they look at you with this blank stare, like, "What are you talking about?"
Yeah, I've done that before once or twice, and they look at you like, "Why would you ever want to do that?" And they're not privy. Some of them aren't privy to some of this information. I have talked to one nurse though who was very privy with some of this stuff, and she was being very cordial with me, not looking at me like I'm insane or anything. Like she knew about some of the stuff and how it could be tested, and she was being very cool about, we can test it, it'll cost as much though, and it's just like it's very outside of anyone's price range to do that, but it's happening, and if this stuff happens, we won't need to be tested for it because it's not affecting us. But we're seeing cases of people with Alzheimer's
skyrocketing
at 40 years old now.
And this is the thing, when I was a little boy,
you don't have to be 80 to get that now.
Yeah, when I was a little boy, we never, and I'm 50 years old. When I was a little kid, you never heard about anybody getting cancer. And you never heard about anybody getting Alzheimer's. I was in my mid-30s before I even knew what Alzheimer's meant. And the only reason I knew what it was because President Reagan got it. And that was because he didn't, he decided not to fund the research for it. That's, but it's a very, very serious thing. And there is a cause for this that we're not being told about. And we need to be informed, because I want to live to be 100 years old. Yeah. This is another reason why I believe that this man should be looked at much more intensely than he has been.
Okay, so police state. The president should dismantle the tyranny being brought down around the American people. Ending the emergence of the police state. America was convinced in liberty, but is fast becoming a police state. We should end the rising tide of fascism in America. He went there, he said that, and it basically is fascism.
True. It is.
If you stop looking at how cute Obama is with his tweets and him being on Jimmy Kimmel and he's a cool guy, it's look at what is actually going on.
Right.
The Second Amendment should be upheld. The Patriot Act, the Freedom Act, and the National Defense Authorization Act
oh my God.
should be repealed. The Posse Comitatus Act should be reinstated. For all of you who think that is still in place, it's not, because of the National Defense Authorization Act. The federalization of militarization of state and local police forces should be reversed, also because of the National Defense Authorization Act. State and local police forces should be required by federal law to surrender their weapons of war to the nearest local U.S. Army arsenal. The FEMA camps should be closed permanently. That's very powerful.
Yeah,
I mean, he's definitely got Alex Jones's vote right there.
Yeah, and what they mean by weapons of war is that a lot of the military hardware that came back from the different wars that we've been in for the past however many years have been given, and I mean given, to police stations. So these little tiny towns in Podunk, wherever, have got a tank, because nothing, why would you need a tank? If you've ever been to a protest or do anything in the last 4 or 5 years, you've noticed that the police officers are not showing up in their little dress blues. They're showing up in riot gear, and they're holding batons and weapons of mass destruction and using sound cannons and using things to disperse us. That is police state tactics. This is not how it was designed. It has to be abolished. And this man, I'm appealing on some level to somebody like a Bernie Sanders to look into this kind of stuff as well, to say, why are we letting this happen in our country? We're allowing this. We're responsible for this. Us people are responsible for letting this happen.
Well said, Phil.
Mm-hmm. Sorry, I'm really passionate about this.
Yeah, as am I. I mean, he's saying all the right things that need to just
really
be done.
And this is just a small percentage of what he has to offer. I mean, we've only gone through about maybe 10 of these tiles. There's 90 more.
Yeah. I think he got through maybe 10, 15, something like that.
Yeah.
But we're most likely going to do a part 2 on this.
Yeah.
And we're going to, wrap up the episode right now. But I think this is a great one to end on, because this is exactly what needs to be stopped so that we don't head towards a police state, which then will lead towards this New World Order society and global government and all the stuff, all these buzzwords that, will propagate this Luciferian society that the elites really, really want at the end of all this, their end goal. And I know, we don't want that. We want a society of freedom, peace, prosperity, and, that's what we're for. That's what Andrew Basiago is for.
Yep.
And,
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm just going to say this real quickly. You know how to boil a frog? You put the frog in cold water, and you put the water on the stove, and you gently turn the water up until the frog won't jump out of the water because it doesn't realize that that's what's going on. This is exactly what's going on in our country. We are a bunch of boiled frogs.
Yeah.
And we need to stop. We need to turn down the heat.
We've been boiled for so long, it feels normal.
It feels normal.
Yeah.
So, they take one right away, they take this thing away, they take that away, and we're like, oh, that's fine. And eventually there's going to be nothing left. Mm-hmm. And this is where we need to change this. So if you guys want to find out more about what he's talking about, the website is www.andy2016.com. And read these. Please go on our YouTube page, go on our Facebook page, comment on this. See if there's anything on there that you want us to talk about in the next episode, because we'd be happy to talk about this. We really want to get the word out there that there's somebody out there that's thinking about us, and that isn't an establishment drone. So, there. I've said my 2 piece.
Awesome.
That's it.
Well, thank you, Phil, and thank you guys for watching. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel, and we will see you guys on the next episode.
Yep.
Thanks for watching.
Thank you.